Hi everyone, and thank you for coming to our free webinar. So you're here because you've seen or heard our adverts about our Supercharge 10 training principles, which we've used to push athletes onto great success over the years. I'm going to keep this webinar fairly short and sweet because I know that you're busy and you'd rather be doing other things like training than watching me on a webinar. And in fact, using your time wisely we mentioned a little bit later on. So first of all, I want to tell you a little bit more about me, who I am, and what puts me in a position to give you this information. Why should you listen to me? Well, I'm a full-time professional triathlon swim coach, and I've been doing this for many years and work with athletes face-to-face on a daily basis, poolside, trackside, and roadside. Along with other coaches, we run Do 3 coaching, and we've helped many hundreds of athletes improve their fitness, technique, race skills, and a multitude of other elements which come together to form a successful triathlete. We've taken well over 100 athletes to the point where they're able to race for their country. Many of these athletes have gone on to podium at national, European and world level. I've spent time working with some of the world's top coaches, including arguably the most successful triathlon coach in the history of the sport, Brett Sutton. I'm also one of the few certified Swim Smooth coaches in the world right now. Swim Smooth is one of the foremost coaching providers to focus on freestyle swimming, and they advise many of the world's governing bodies on how to coach swimming for triathlon. So this webinar details what we mean by the Supercharge 10 training principles and also introduces Do 3 Commit, the training plan that draws together these principles and leads athletes to success in all distance of triathlon racing. So let's get into the Supercharge 10. Just what is it that's going to propel you and your training to that next level? So these principles are in no particular order because it's more the combination of them that brings success than one single principle in isolation. Firstly, number one, setting true goals. Now this one is about motivation, and a goal is something that really should get your juices flowing, get you fired up and really excite you, and something that will make you proud and give you an overall feeling of fulfillment and achievement. If you set a great goal that you are genuinely motivated to achieve, this should be enough to push you through your training. It'll motivate you to get out of bed on a cold winter's morning. It'll motivate you to eat a smaller piece of cake or have that one fewer glass of wine. And it's worth spending time really thinking about this, because if it isn't a genuine goal that you're passionate about and one you can't realistically achieve, then you may struggle when times get hard. Your goals should be specific in that they achieve a certain objective. So they can't be vague and general, like do a triathlon or get better at triathlon. It has to be to complete a specific race, be at a particular time, or something else clearly defined. Goals need to be measurable so that you're able to evaluate success. Did you complete the thing you set out to do? The time, the distance, and the race. So goals need to be achievable in the timescale that you've set yourself. So setting yourself a goal of running a sub 40-minute 10K within 6 weeks when you can't run to the end of the street, just not going to happen. So doing this sets you up to fail and puts you in a negative mindset. Always try and maintain a positive mindset by shooting for goals that are realistically within reach. Don't get me wrong, it's good to be ambitious, but look at progression as rungs on a ladder. Try and take one step at a time. Try and jump too many steps and you're likely to fall. You can always extend your goals if they prove too easy. Finally, goals should have time limits because this gives the goal clarity. It helps focus the mind and gives definition to the challenge at hand. When the going gets tough, a clear end date can help push you through. Next up, consistency is king. Now, I've coached many athletes across the years, and one thing is totally clear in my mind. The athletes who achieve the most success are those who are most consistent. And being consistent means training regularly for long periods of time without long breaks. It means looking after your body so you don't get injured and can't train. It means looking after your health and not pushing yourself to the limit so you get ill. It means planning ahead and shuffling other elements of your life so you can maintain that regularity. Consistency is the number one principle that will make you a better athlete. Consistency doesn't mean you can't take breaks for holidays or for recovery periods. The overall picture is key. At Do 3, we use Training Peaks for delivering our training programs to athletes. Quite simply, red sessions mean incomplete and green means complete. So no surprise that the most successful athletes have virtually all green. Of course, consistency for one person would be different to consistency for another in terms of volume. Some athletes may complete 4 sessions a week, whereas others may complete 12 sessions a week. It depends on the athlete's available time, experience, and ability. The main thing is that training is regular, balanced, and well executed. Number 3, swim a lot. There's no avoiding swim training in triathlon. Love it or hate it, it's part of the sport that you've chosen. In my experience as a coach, having dealt with many hundreds of age group athletes, swimming is easily the most avoided discipline. I totally understand this. As somebody who didn't swim very much as a child, I've always found swimming a bit of a battle myself. The reality is that to improve as a triathlete, you really must work on your swimming. When I say that, I don't just mean do the minimum training to complete the race distance. You need to get your swimming fitness far beyond this point. And why is this? Because, of course, swimming is the first discipline in triathlon, with the bike and the run to follow. If you train to just be able to complete the swim, the race distance, then you're likely to use so much of your energy, you're going to leave yourself really depleted for the bike and run disciplines that are to come. To be a good triathlete, you effectively need to flip this. You should swim so you're confident, you're comfortably able to race your race distance plus 50%. Excessive swim fitness will allow you to complete the discipline and for that have a relatively low physical load. You should finish the swim with plenty of energy, feeling fresh and ready to hit the bike. Swimming in general is a volume sport, and what I mean by this is in order to improve as a swimmer, there's no shortcuts. So without a good amount of volume, your improvements will be limited and you're likely to reach plateaus in your training. So in general terms, the better you are as a swimmer, the more volume you will need to complete to continue to improve. Some new swimmers may find that 1 or 2 sessions a week will be sufficient for them to progress, but there'll come a point when they will plateau. So similarly, a decent age group of swimmer may be able to progress on 3 to 4 sessions a week, but again, a plateau will occur at some point. This pattern continues until you reach international level swimming or triathlon, when elites and professionals can be swimming as far as 100 kilometers a week. Swimming is excellent for overall conditioning and without the physical impact, for example, that running generates. So swimming is also excellent for rehab and has therapeutic effects on the body, and it helps you recover from the rigors of hard bike and run sessions. So overall, swimming has a huge part to play in becoming a better triathlete and really shouldn't be avoided. That said, again, I do understand that many will still find it hard to get themselves in the pool. So do whatever it takes to help you enjoy getting in the water. Consider swimming with a group or a club, because swimming with others makes things so much more enjoyable, and half the time you won't even feel like you've done a workout. Swim with a music player if needs be, use a pool boy, or do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel happier in the water. Swim with structure, and that means take a program or take a plan to the pool with you so that you've got an idea about what you're actually doing when you're swimming. Never swim unstructured, make it up as you go along fashion, as it will just result in clock watching and boredom. Having shorter intervals with good technique are far better and more enjoyable than slogging out endless lengths with your stroke getting sloppier and sloppier as you go along. Finally, if your race is an open water swim, train regularly in the open water. You might be surprised at how much you rely on that little breather in a 25-meter pool, or how different it feels swimming in a wetsuit. To summarise, if you want to be a better triathlete, you need to embrace the water. Number 4, recover like a pro. As I mentioned earlier, these principles are not being presented in any particular order, but I think if they were, this one would be certainly near the top. Recovery is hugely important for us, and contrary to what many believe, you don't become stronger when you're training. You become stronger and your body heals and adapts to the stress of the work of the training when it's actually at rest afterwards. So without adequate recovery and rest, you just simply won't progress, and you may even get injured or ill. So when we talk about recovery, we talk about the breaks between training intervals, as well as the breaks on a weekly, monthly, and annual basis. The way to think about recovery is that you need to do everything you can during the recovery period to prepare yourself to give your best effort during the work interval. And that means whether preparing for an individual sprint interval during a run session or a full training session following a recovery day. And recovery includes physical rest, mental rest, and good nutrition to help rebuild your body and refuel. A simple template to follow in terms of recovery would be to have at least 1 day off a week, 1 week off a month, and 1 month off per year. And depending on where you are in your training cycle and what your race calendar is. And this is basic advice, but if you're new to training, this is a decent place to start. Recovery means recovery. It doesn't mean filling recovery days with digging in the garden, going on long social rides or walks. Be honest with yourself and think about just how much recovery and rest you're actually getting. Sleep is hugely important as part of the recovery and strength building process too. The more training you're doing in general terms, the more sleep you should be getting in order to recover. Cut the sleep short and you won't recover as well. You'll carry higher levels of fatigue into training sessions. Inflammation levels won't reduce in the way that they should. And ideally, you should be sleeping for a minimum of 7 hours a night with an extra hour added for every hour that you train. Number 5, easy means easy and hard means hard. So training sessions have different intensities for a reason. Going easy achieves aerobic fitness and improved efficiency with low stress on the body. So this level is also used for recovery and general maintenance as well. At the other end of the scale, there are max intervals which are there to improve speed and aerobic capacity. It's very common for athletes to overpitch many of the training zones. Sometimes they feel like they're just not training properly unless they're feeling the burn, or they're worrying about how their stats are going to look on Strava. So this is a short-sighted approach and one that can lead to athletes becoming tired, injured, or inefficient. Equally, athletes are sometimes reluctant to push themselves hard enough on the hard intervals because it hurts. But how will you know what you're capable of if you don't go out your comfort zone? Max efforts should be used sparingly in training and only when fully recovered, fueled and warmed up, but they are really valuable for improving speed. So in summary, don't spend too much time in the grey zone. Number 6, train the way you intend to race. So this is an obvious one, but often overlooked. Training simply means preparing your body to do the thing that you're training for. To that end, the vast majority of your training should be closely related to the event that you're training for. So a good example of this is not having equipment you save for best, like race day, and other equipment that you use day in, day out, like riding a time trial bike in races when you do all of your training on a road bike. Athletes often do this because they don't feel comfortable enough to hold their position on a time trial bike, or their time trial bike is just too precious to put too many miles on or get dirty on the roads. But how could you possibly expect to have your best performance on a bike if you don't ride regularly or don't feel comfortable on it? Just not going to happen. Another example of this would be in the swimming pool. I often see athletes doing long endurance sets, stopping every 200 meters to have a big old drink from their water bowl. If you're doing an Ironman event and you're going to be swimming between 50 minutes and 2 hours without eating or drinking, then your body needs to prepare to train to do that. Another good way of looking at this is that athletes will fall back to the level of their training during a race. An athlete very rarely exceeds what they've been doing in training during a race. So this means that to have a good race, you need to have trained to the level that is going to prepare you for it. So there's no shortcuts. Nothing magic is going to happen on race day. This means doing swim and then bike training sessions, bike and then run training sessions, transition practice, fueling practice, and every element of your key race should have been practiced multiple times. Training like this will allow you to go into race day feeling confident that you've been there and done this many times before. Number 7, pick and stick patience. So these days, especially in the world of social media, athletes are bombarded with good advice, and I guess you're listening to some of that now. It can be confusing, especially to less experienced athletes, and they simply won't know what advice to listen to, especially when so much of it is contradictory. Now, the reality is that all athletes are different and some will need different approaches. And what works for one might not necessarily work for another. And the key is finding out what works best for you. So going right back to the beginning when we talked about consistency, the main thing is that you stick to the method you have faith in and you understand. Now, most structured training programs, regardless of the methodology used, will take you a long way provided they're consistently adhered to. But athletes often get bored and they think there may be fast gains to be made by moving from one method to another or from one coach to another. But whilst they may get an initial surge from the excitement of a new regime, they often realise that their results have little change. My advice to you is to be patient, be consistent, and stop constantly looking for the next best thing. The best athletes work hard, stick to a plan, and believe in what they're doing. Number 8, the fourth discipline, food and fuel. Now, this is a huge subject and certainly one which justifies its own webinar or course to cover properly in detail. But all I'll say here is that in a similar way to recovery, it should be treated as a very important part of the sport and in many cases is referred to as the fourth discipline. Fail to fuel your training, racing and recovery effectively and you risk underperforming, have poor quality training sessions and increased recovery times too. You need to ensure you get enough protein for recovery and building strength, as well as carbs for higher training and racing intensities and restocking stores after exercise. So your body only stores a relatively small amount of carbohydrates, but even the leanest athlete has enough body fat to train for many hours at low intensity. So depending on the intensity of the exercise, carbs can be burned at a rapid rate to the point where your body will start to be unable to perform and you'll be forced to slow right down. So this is sometimes called hitting the wall or bonking. So underfueling training sessions will more than likely cause your body to burn lean tissue rather than fat. Fat is predominantly burned at lower exercise intensities, and you can see how just a little bit of basic knowledge like this can help you start to plan your training and racing strategies when it comes to nutrition. So getting the basics of nutrition right isn't rocket science, and it really is the fourth discipline you need to make sure you work on alongside your swimming, cycling and running. Finally, if you need help managing your body composition, the best thing to do is follow professional advice and also please don't follow the fads. Number 9 is don't be alone. So this has been covered several times already in the points that we've spoken about. So training is so much more fun when you can do it with others. You can drive each other on, you can motivate and support one another. And on the bike, for example, it can be good to work as a team so that you can improve bike handling skills and drafting. There's also the safety element of training with others so that if you have someone else there if something goes wrong. Don't get me wrong, there are times when it's good to train alone. I personally like to get out on long bike rides by myself because I enjoy the solitude, but generally on a day-to-day basis, it's great to be part of a small team or group. Training with others can also push you onto whole new levels, and I like to call this the Brownlee effect. I call it the Brownlee effect because the brothers Johnny and Alistair Brownlee always had someone else to race with, be competitive with, and someone else to push them on to get that extra 1% from the training sessions. The fact they had each other would have almost certainly had a direct positive impact on the huge amount of success they've had in the sport. At Do3 Coaching, we have what we call Do3 Squad. This is the community of a huge range of abilities who love the sport and just love talking about it. And I'm sure there'll be a community like this near you. And of course, you could join us if you wanted to, either physically if you're local or online if you're further afield. Number 10 is follow a plan. As already mentioned, the best way to success is by having a clear goal, structure, training and consistency. So muddling through will only take you so far and you'll quickly become frustrated and you'll hit those plateaus. So following a structured training program should ensure that the balance of training is correct, the balance of rest is correct, and you receive exposure to the appropriate levels of intensity. All these things combined will result in your improved performance. But whichever program you choose, you should ensure you have the support and advice of a coach. So having this achieves several things. Number 1, it keeps you accountable, and there's nothing more motivating than someone keeping an eye on you. Number 2, there will always be times when you're unsure about how to structure your training, especially when things go wrong, you get tired or injured or fatigued. Number 3, coaches often come with a community of similar athletes you can interact with, train with, and discuss your hopes and fears with. Training with others can really push you to another level and have fun doing it. At Do3, we offer various levels of coaching that range from bespoke one-to-one coaching that includes physiological testing and regular coach contact and feedback, through to our low-cost but structured and detailed Do3 Commit training programs. Talking of which, I want to tell you about Do3 Commit, our low-cost triathlon training program. So for a small monthly fee, you get a structured training program, downloadable workouts, access to experienced coaches, and be part of a community who are on the same journey as you. Do3 Commit also comes with an accompanying online training course full of training videos, advice, and much more. So Commit has a few options. There's Commit Squad, our constant and ongoing conditioning program. Commit Standard, our 20-week program for anyone targeting a standard or an Olympic distance event. Commit Middle, our 28-week program for anyone targeting a middle distance event. And Commit Long, our 36-week program for anyone targeting a long distance event. So how much does it cost? So normally Do3 Commit is £30 for every 4 weeks with a one-off setup fee of £50. But if you sign up with us today, we will not only waive the setup fee, but we'll also reduce the 4 weekly fee from £30 down to £25. So to clarify what that means, if you sign up today, you'll pay £25 to get started and then £25 every 4 weeks for the time that you're on the program. There are no contracts and you can leave the program at any time. So to sign up now or find out more, click the link and we'll take you to a page where you can find out all about Commit and get yourself signed up. Press the button to connect, and I look forward to seeing you within Do3 Commit.